So Leon's been lucky enough to already play the Callisto Protocol. It's trudging through water in this game, waiting for something to jump out at you, as nervy as it seems in this footage.
Yes. It's a very kind of suspenseful kind of game. You're always trying to obviously get someone to do something, but yeah, like there's a lot of kind of narrow dark corridors. Like if you do get in any space, you sort of almost, that makes you worry more because it probably means something's going to come into that space. So yeah, it's made by Glenn Schofield, obviously made Dead Space originally, and it's very much in that vein. It's very kind of like grim sci-fi, dark sci-fi. Yeah, lots of monsters. You are trying to basically not die for a list of reasons, and the monsters kind of get in the way. And when I played it, you had to get to oxygen processing, you had to do some stuff with water. Like there are other more pressing matters than the monsters.
Ironically.
Yes.
It looks here like you have also a melee weapon. Is it an electric bat?
So it's some kind of, like a stun baton, but it sort of almost has kind of like knife-like properties. It looks like a big like bar, almost like a little metal bar, but yeah, it's electric. You can upgrade it, and there's a much bigger focus on like melee and kind of hand-to-hand combat in this. It's not like, say, Dead Space, you had a sort of a swipe that you'd use to make some space. This is a much more functioning system, and it's a really good system. Like I wasn't expecting it to be as kind of brutal and as violent as it is, and also as how sort of useful, because you have like a dodge mechanic. So when an enemy gets close, you sort of lock onto them. You can run away at any time, but the camera kind of pulls around and you're like face to face with an enemy, and you can dodge by tapping left and right on the left stick.
Oh, that's nice.
And if you do it right, you get a little bit slow-mo and you can get some whacks in. If you do it well enough, you can stun them and they'll kind of stumble back and a little crosshairs will pop up. And if you can like pull your gun out quick, you can do like a skill shot that is sort of high damage, like a critical shot.
Okay.
So there's a lot more kind of this kind of dance almost, where like you'll go toe to toe with one and you'll sort of dodge, and you can block as well. And you can, basically take them on like hand to hand, and you feel much more kind of capable. You're much more, the survival is much more in your hands. You're much less of a victim because you can take one on and, whack them with this stun baton and beat them. And it feels really nice. It's really crunchy, like, the bones shattering, that sort of thing.
So instead of like other games where it's like, oh, if they've got too close, you're dead, or like you need to run away, this is more of a like, I don't know, it's not the end of the world. In fact, it's a risk reward system where it's like, if you feel confident dodging, it's like, this, you could actually take him out quicker because you do your skill shot and then he's down.
I spoke to Glenn Schofield when I played it, and he said that they did a lot of testing on Dead Space, and they do user testing, and they get you to like rank all the elements of the game, and the user testing always came back that Dead Space, the game, was like a 9, but the melee was like 2, and he always remembered sort of this poor response to the melee because it's such a secondary system. It's the thing you use when you run out of bullets. So he's always sort of thought about this, and that's why in the Callisto Protocol it's really like crunchy and violent, and you can't really, if there's a room full of people, you still have to kind of fall back on guns. But if you go one-on-one, you're like, I can just do this hand-to-hand, and you feel like it's a good sort of fighting system. It almost weirdly reminded me a bit of, was it Fight Night, the boxing game? Because you had that similar system of dodging.
Yeah,
so you're tapping
dodge,
left and
jump
right,
in, get out, dodge,
finding that sort of space. And when it works, you are, you can take one out, but it can also go wrong. You lose your timing, and then suddenly you're on the back foot, and it's, you're in trouble. But
so another thing that's in this is we have the standard go get X to open Y type thing. Are these more fetch quests that funnel you into enemies, or is it more puzzles? Or?
It's very similar to Dead Space. Obviously, in Dead Space, the whole point of it initially, when you first arrive on the space station, is the ship's going to crash, and you have to go and get the engine refueled. You have to get the engine restarted. You have to go, so you're doing all these things from moment to moment to kind of keep everything working and stop the ship crashing. And this feels very similar to that. Like they're being very secretive about the story. Like they won't say what the actual protocol is. They won't give away anything
because there's Callisto credits, which I'm assuming
it's just money, isn't it?
Yeah.
They won't give too much away. All I know in what I played was I was trying to get to oxygen processing for reasons, and to do that you go through water processing, and you have to drain a water tank. So you have to reach like water processing, you have to drain the tank, that opens up a tunnel that then lets you get to oxygen processing. And I'm assuming you're getting to oxygen processing because you need to do something there, but it has that very Dead Space feel of like, we have some things to do for important reasons, and you're constantly being sort of pushed from one place to the next. And water processing, I had to get somewhere, then I had to get the key to open the door, and then I had to get in, and I had to turn something on so I could drain the water tanks.
The other thing that I like about the water processing, the oxygen processing, it allows them to play with environments. So have you seen this footage? Like, I'm guessing the water processing is where all the mud is, but then the oxygen processing is where all the oxygen processing is maybe where the mist is. But more importantly, like, I love that they've taken the dead space thing and then they've added different layers of environmental, like, scares and storytelling and stuff. Like, walking into that mist, you're like, no.
There's a lot of really nice kind of tonal stuff, actually. There's a bit where you're in water processing and you're obviously walking through like sewage and all sorts of stuff, and at one point you end into an area that I think has been like overrun by this sort of biophage, which is the alien sort of infestation, and it's all red and it's grown over the light, so everything is just one color of red, and it's this sort of amazing like tonal kind of break. There's another really good bit when you go into a corridor, and it's a short corridor, there's a door at the end, but the door is flooded with light, so you can't really see anything, but you can hear them, and then they're shambling out of the light, and the bright light's blinding you, so you can't really see them until they're really close. And there's some really nice, like very cinematic, tonal things that really kind of shake up otherwise grim, grey corridors, like oily litter everywhere, and then you get these beautiful kind of framed moments that feel very cinematic.
It speaks to very much like Glenn Schofield's been having all these ideas over the last couple of years, writing them down on post-it notes or drawing a little drawing and go, because he's an artist as well. So there are little things like that with the light where you can just imagine he's been percolating this over the years and just shoved it all in this game.
We chatted really a lot. The interview I had is largely kind of useless because we went off on a tangent about horror films and stuff, and like we were talking about like lots of horror and the things that he sort of watched and stuff that he was talking about when he was making it. So it's he's a sci-fi and a horror nerd, and he's just pouring all that into originally Dead Space and now into this, and it feels a little more modern. There's a kind of like, it made me think of a bit of Expanse, that kind of hard sci-fi of like, it's very much the station you're on feels like a submarine or an oil rig. It's not pretty, it's like it's there to keep space out and keep everyone alive, so it's very heavy and slab like and lots
oppressive.
Of plate metal, like it's, and there's rubbish and gunk everywhere. It's a very, like I say, hard sci-fi. This is what it might be like if it was real, kind of thing.
So first impressions, just quickly, like, seems great.
I really liked it. Like, I genuinely, I knew it was going to be sort of good. I thought it'd be all right, 6, 7 out of 10, but it's gone like straight to the top of my kind of playlist. Like, I genuinely wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was, and I really enjoyed it. And
not to do comparisons, but you have recently played a lot of Dead Space.
I think just because it's newer, that's kind of, I think this is slightly above Dead Space just because it's newer, and it feels like a continuation, whereas the Dead Space remake is a remake. Callisto feels like it's progressing beyond what Dead Space did. Great.
Well, really excited about that. Very interested to see what the Callisto Protocol ends up being. For more on the Callisto Protocol and our eventual review, and to see if it's still top of Leon's list, make sure you subscribe to GamesRadar and hit the notification button.